This is Course 2, Lesson 3. We will be working with unknown numbers in addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So we know that an equation is a statement that two quantities are equal. So here we have two equations. We have 3 plus 4 equals 7. And we also have 5 plus a equals 9. So we see that this equation here on the right contains a variable. So in this lesson, we're going to practice with finding the value of variables in addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So sometimes we might encounter addition equations in which the sum is unknown, while other times we might encounter addition equations which an addend is unknown. Okay, so we can use a letter to represent an unknown number. So this letter can be either lowercase or uppercase, it doesn't matter. So when we have an unknown sum, it might look like 2 plus 3 equals n. If we have an unknown addend, it might look like 2 plus a equals 5. Or it could also look like b plus 3 equals 5. So if we know two of the three numbers, you can find the unknown number. We can find an unknown addend by subtracting the known addend from the sum. If there are more than two addends, we will subtract all the known addends from the sum. So for example, you might have the equation 3 plus 4 plus n plus 7 plus 8 equals 40. So what you want to do is you're going to subtract 3, 4, 7, and 8 from 40 in order to solve for n. So for example 1, we want to find the unknown number in each equation. So for a, we have n plus 53 equals 75. So n here is our unknown number. We want to isolate this in order to solve for what this number is. So like we said before, you want to take the addend and subtract it from the sum. So we are subtracting here because we have n plus 53. So since we want to isolate this n, you want to get rid of the 53 on this side. So that is why you are going to subtract. So once you subtract 53 from this side, you can cross it out because you'll get 0. So then over here on the side of your sum, you now have 75 minus 53. So once you do your math, you will get 22. And on the left side, we now only have n here. So we can write n equals 22 for our final answer. You can also plug n back in, or 22 for n, back in over here and do the math to double check your work to make sure you got it right. So you would do 22 plus 53, and if it equals 75, you know that you did your work correctly. For b, we are doing the same thing. So we have our unknown number a. We want to isolate this number. So what we will do is we will subtract 26. So the 26 on the left side crosses out, and then we are going to subtract 26 from the right side. So once you do your math, 61 minus 26 equals 35. So we now have our answer, a equals 35. And again, you can plug 35 back in up here for a, and then you will see that 35 plus 26 will give you 61. And again, we are taking our addend, which is 26, and we are subtracting it from our sum. So for c, we have multiple numbers now, right? But we still have our one unknown number, which is n. So your first step here, you want to add the known addend. So you want to combine your like terms. So we have 3 plus 4 plus 7 plus 8. So once you do all of that, you will get 22. So you'll have 22 plus n equals 40. So now your equation looks the exact same as what you did for both a and b. So now you need to isolate n. So you will subtract 22 from both sides. You're subtracting the addend from the sum. So once you subtract 40 minus 22, you will get 18. And this will be your final answer. And again, you can take 18 and plug it back into your original equation up here, and you will see that your answer is 40, meaning that you did your work correctly. So now we will move on to the subtraction equations. So if one of the three numbers is unknown, you can find the unknown number, just like we did previously with the addition equations. So you might have, for example, a minus 3 equals 2. So this is when we have an unknown minuend. You might have 5 minus x equals 2 when we have an unknown subtrahend, or you might have 5 minus 3 equals m when we have an unknown difference. So in order to find an unknown minuend, you would subtract the other two numbers. To find an unknown subtrahend or difference, we subtract. All right, so for example 2, we are finding the unknown number in each equation. So for A, we have p minus 24 equals 17. So you are doing basically exactly what you did for example 1 for when we were trying to also solve for the unknown variable. So we're trying to solve for p. We want to isolate p. So we have to get rid of this negative 24 on this side. So you will take 24 and you are going to add it over here to the right side. Okay, and then once you do 17 plus 24, you will get 41. So that will be the value of p. And again, just like we did for the addition equations, you can plug 41 back up here into p, and you'll see that 41 minus 24 will give you 17 to make sure that you did your math correctly. So for example B, we have 32 minus x equals 14. So this way we're going to do it a little bit different because we are trying to find a subtrahend, all right? So in order to find a subtrahend, we are going to subtract the difference from the minuend, all right? So you will subtract 14, you'll subtract 14 from 32, and that will give you 18. So that will be your value of x. You could also do it a slightly different way. So you have 32 minus x equals 14. So we can kind of do what we have been doing for all of the other examples by trying to isolate this x. So again, we want to get this 32 onto this side, right? Because you want to get this x by itself. So we would subtract 32 from this side, and then you're going to subtract 32 from the sum, and now you will be left with negative 18. However, we still have a negative sign over here. So actually in the next example, we are going to go over how to solve this, but I can show you right now. So we have a negative x equals negative 18. So we need to isolate this x, but it has to be positive. It can't be negative, right? So we need to get rid of this negative sign out front. So what you can do is you can divide by negative 1. This will get rid of that negative sign. So then you do the same to the right side. You will divide by negative 1. So this will also get rid of these negative signs, okay? So then your answer will be x equals 18. So in both ways, you get the same answer. So you can do whichever one you prefer. All right, so now on to multiplication equations. So we know that these equations are composed of factors and a product. So if any one of these numbers is unknown, we can figure out what it is. So you might have an unknown product, which looks like 3 times 2 equals p. We might have an unknown factor, which looks like 3 times f equals 6. Or you might have another unknown factor, which looks like r times 2 equals 6. So to find an unknown product, we know that we multiply the factors. To find an unknown factor, we divide the product by the unknown factors. So for example 3, we need to find the unknown number in each equation. So for A, we have 12 n equals 168. So just like we did in all of the other examples, we need to isolate this n. So we need to solve for what this unknown variable is. What times 12 gives us 168? So we know that we need to take this 12 and move it over here. So divide this side by 12, and then we are going to divide our product, which is 168, divided by 12. So we know that n equals 14 after we do our math. And then if you want to check your work, you can figure out that 12 times 14 gives you 168. Now for B. So B, we're doing the same thing. We have 7 times k equals 105. So we have our unknown factor here, which is k, okay? And we have to notice that the same over here with 12n, this just means 12 times n. Same for this, it's 7 times k. So we can find this unknown factor by dividing the product by this known factor. So we take the 7, divide that, and then we're going to divide the product by 7. So after we do our math, we will figure out that k equals 15. And again, you can plug 15 back up here to figure out that 7 times 15 does in fact give you 105 to make sure that your work is correct. Now we will move on to division equations. So if we know 2 of the 3 numbers in a division equation, we can figure out the unknown number. So we might have an unknown quotient, which might look like 24 divided by 3 equals n. We might have an unknown divisor, which looks like 24 divided by m gives you 8. Or an unknown dividend, which might be p divided by 3 equals 8. So to find an unknown quotient, we simply divide the dividend by the divisor. To find an unknown divisor, we would divide the dividend by the quotient. To find an unknown dividend, you multiply the quotient by the divisor. So for example 4, we want to find the unknown number in each equation. So for a, we have a divided by 3 equals 15. Okay, so we are trying to find an unknown dividend. All right, that is the a up here. So in order to find the unknown dividend, we want to multiply the quotient by the divisor, okay? So you end up doing 15 times 3 gives you 45. Or how I have kind of been explaining the previous examples, you want to isolate this a, okay? So you want to get rid of this divided by 3 right below it. So in order to get rid of this, you could basically just multiply it by a fraction. So if you multiply this side by 3 over 1, this crosses out the 3's, all right? So we just totally get rid of the 3's. Now you just have an a on this side. But to the right side, you need to multiply that 3. So this also gives you a equals 45. So for b, we will do the same thing. So we have 64 divided by b equals 4. So we are trying to find an unknown divisor in this case. So in order to do this, we would divide the dividend by the quotient. So that would give us 64 divided by 4. So, and that will give you 16 as your answer.